Here is the face of a paedophile whose crimes have traumatised a schoolgirl for life.
Andrew Miller, also known as Amy George, lured the young victim into his car while dressed as a woman.
Miller, who has also been known as Amy George, was dressed as a woman when he lured his young victim into a car in February.
53-year-old butcher Andrew Miller. And here is the same person identifying as Amy George.
There were no buses in the area. Her phone was out of battery. So she got into that vehicle and it quickly descended into one of the most dangerous crimes.
On Sunday, February 5, 2023, an 11-year-old girl was walking home when a woman offered her a lift. The child entered the passenger side, and after more than 27 hours later, police received a call from the child, obviously in a state of fear and stress. On Sunday, February 5, 2023, an 11-year-old girl was walking home along Melrose Road in Galashiels, Scotland, when Andrew Miller stopped his Jaguar car and offered her a lift home. Andrew was dressed as a woman, and the child thought he was non-threatening, as she would later describe. Andrew Miller is a 53-year-old owner of the Millers of Melrose butchers. Locals said Andrew had become well-known in the community. It was about 6 years ago that Andy changed his name and started dressing and styling his hair as a female. There was shock among the shopkeepers when the transition happened, one said. During their interaction, Andrew identified himself as Amy George and asked the girl if she was okay. The victim stated she was cold. Amy offered her a lift and the child entered the passenger side of the car. In the car, the accused asked the victim how her day had been, and they chatted for a bit. As the vehicle drove past the area of her home, the child reminded the accused that it was where her house was, but the accused stated that he needed to go by his house in the Scottish border to drop something off, then he would return her home thereafter. When Andrew arrived home, he took the girl inside, locked her up in the bedroom, and when she asked him to be allowed to go home, the accused insisted she needed to warm up first and that he would return her the following morning. Over the course of the next 27 hours, the girl was subjected to different acts of sexual assault. She was touched repeatedly and forced to watch pornography in the form of images until Andrew fell asleep in bed alongside her.
In February of this year, on a street in the Scottish borders, this was a person who stopped by the side of the street as this child was walking home in the evening and offered this girl a lift home. She did not have any battery on her phone. There were no buses available at that time. And Andrew Miller was presenting as a woman, was dressed in women's clothing, and the court heard that this girl thought that that would be a safe option to enter this vehicle. But clearly this was a sex offender who had other reasons and had other plans of what would then unfold. They drove this young child back to his property, locked the girl inside his bedroom and subjected her to a very frightening and terrifying ordeal. Hours of repeated sexual abuse. One evening in February was caught on CCTV driving along a street in one of those Scottish towns where a young girl was making her way home from a friend's house that evening. And at that stage, she described being freezing. Her phone had run out of battery, and Andrew Miller pulled up at the side of the pavement, wound down the window and asked if this girl wanted a lift home. Then allowed this girl to get inside this car, lured her in, and the court heard the girl took advantage of that because she thought she was getting into the car of a woman. What then happened over the following 27 hours was utterly horrifying in its nature, some of which we can't even go into for taste and decency. He locked her in his bedroom and repeatedly sexually abused her over a period of more than 24 hours.
On the second night, and while Andrew was asleep in the bed beside the child, she knocked over a glass of water to see if it would rouse him. It didn't. Then she turned on the bedroom light to see if that would disturb him. When it didn't, she attempted to escape, but was unable to open the front door because it was locked with a key. However, she found the landline phone and used it to call 999, the emergency number in the UK, and the 999 call was recorded. The child's fear and distress is obvious as she describes to the operator what happened to her, saying she had been touched inappropriately and voiced her concern to be located. She remained in the utility room until a while later. She heard police at the door. Police arrived at Andrew's home at 9:35 p.m. on February 6. Officers made their way to the rear of the property and entered through the rear door and found the child, who told them the accused was in the bedroom. Police entered and arrested Andrew.
We also discovered that this victim in this highly distressing case only managed to break free when her attacker fell asleep. She managed to escape that room, call 999, and police arrived on the scene within minutes. He was then arrested, and police described the victim as her fear being palpable.
At the time of his arrest, Andrew was wearing a bra, a woman's underwear, tights, and one silicone breast. The other had become dislodged during a struggle. Following his arrest, 3 laptops were seized from his property, and a total of 242 indecent images of children were found, most of which were of the lowest category. His internet history was also accessed, showing his search for indecent images. It should be noted that Andrew and his victim didn't know each other previous to the incident. Andrew made a statement to police describing what had happened, saying the girl had been freezing when he saw her and that he did not abduct her. He said he had been watching rugby and gave her a lift. As he describes it, it was a motherly thing. She sat in the bedroom and watched DVDs. He said, "It wasn't that I didn't want to take her home. I just didn't know what people would think. Then I saw on the news that she was reported missing and I thought, for fuck's sake, this is getting worse by the minute. I didn't know what to do as I didn't want to get caught." He admitted he should have called police and never have gotten into this situation. Scotland's First Minister, Hamza Yusuf, confirmed Andrew is being held in the male prison estate.
This morning, Andrew Miller, Amy George, will not be sent to a women's prison.
Well, first of all, can I say that this is a gut-wrenching case, heartbreaking. I cannot think of the trauma the victim and the family of the victim, and in fact the community are going through. I can confirm, of course, that Andrew Miller is being held in a male prison, but I can't say which one and I can't go into the details.
And will he continue to stay in a male prison?
Well, again, look, this is a live case. The sentencing is still to happen, so I can't comment any further, but of course he is being held in the male estate.
But can you rule out that he will not be moved to a women's prison?
I cannot comment on a live case. You should know that.
Even if anyone believes what he said and that it was all a misunderstanding, the fact that he took her to his home instead of her parents' home proves that there is something sinister about him. In court, Andrew appeared by video link from HMP Edinburgh and pleaded guilty to charges of abduction, sexual assault, watching pornography in the presence of a child under the age of 13, and possessing 242 indecent images of children.
Well, there were guilty pleas to the indictment that laid before the court. There will be no trial. And there will be no requirement for the victim in this case to give those harrowing details to a jury.
The judge said Andrew dressing as a woman was an aggravating factor because it was unlikely that the girl would have got into the car if Andrew had presented himself as a man. One only has to ask oneself the simple question, would the girl have willingly entered your car had you presented as a man? The answer is that obviously she would not. Your intentions were wicked and predatory and clearly involved a substantial component of planning, the judge said.
The judge here describing these crimes as nauseating in its level of depravity, wicked and predatory.
In addition, addressing him, the judge said, "Your actions represent abhorrent crimes of the utmost depravity and criminality. Your actions in the case are the realization of every parent's worst nightmare." During interviews with the risk assessor, Andrew attempted to place responsibility on the victim. The judge said, "You told the assessor you went into business mode, trying to think of a plan." Then the judge added, "On a number of occasions, the risk assessor reports that you referred to the abduction as a game." Also, at the sentencing hearing, it emerged that Andrew claimed he was trying to think of a solution of how to end the abduction before the child managed to alert the police, while an expert who wrote a report said they doubt Andrew's initial intention was to murder the girl. They said this could have become a more likely occurrence the longer the kidnapping went on. Andrew previously ran a butcher's shop in Melrose, where he became known for his abrupt manner with customers. He was often seen drinking alone in local pubs, and at the start of the year, he announced shortly before the attack that the shop would not be reopening. And before the arrest, Andrew maintained social media profiles as both Andrew Miller and Amy George. In October 2023, Andrew was sentenced to 20 years in prison and will also be supervised for 8 years upon his release. In addition, he has been placed on the sex offender registry indefinitely.
It has been a crime that has shocked this country, has shocked that local community, and today, Andrew Miller, Amy George, who will serve his sentence in a male prison, will spend 20 years at least behind bars.